Hey everyone, Corey here. No intro, nothing crazy over the top here. I've mentioned that I've been working on doing this video for quite a while now. So June is a busy month for me personally and for a lot of people, for a variety of reasons. Obviously, it is Pride, as I know it's near the end of it, technically, although we should always celebrate it. But the other thing that goes on in June is Men's Mental Health Month. And I wanted to talk about this subject in particular because those of you that have been around the channel or know me personally know how much of an advocate for strong mental health that I am, even as I struggle with my own many days. But I wanted to talk specifically about more about men's mental health because as someone that is single, actively dating, the social media algorithms have decided that it should push me gender war content or just insanity on my social media as much as I try to curate it to, my YouTube videos to my interests, World of Warcraft, music, gotten back into watching poker again, um, things like that, or like my Instagram feed is, things that I think are cool or funny, or mostly I try to use it for the memes and to send my friends things that I think are funny or remind them that I'm thinking about them and stuff like that. Unfortunately, the algorithms don't always allow that. And have seen a lot of content this month where I've not actively searched for it about people putting down the fact that June is Mental Health Month. Oh, it's Pride, but then men can't feel left out. Like, that's a straw man. So I kind of wanted to just talk about men's mental health in general, just some things to be thinking about when it comes to men's mental health and some ideas that I think we all need to participate in order to be able to move forward on some of the worst aspects of men's mental health, not just for the men themselves, but how society approaches it. So, obviously, this video is going to be extremely heavy trigger warning. All right, we're going to be talking about a lot of subjects that could cause stress, bring up trauma, anything like that for you. So, if you have any concerns about that, thank you for clicking on this video, but please close it. I want you to protect you. All right. And then at the end, I just kind of want to talk a little bit because this is my video. I get to do it. I'm going to talk a little bit about me and the things that I'm trying to do. And to shout out without naming them because I didn't get permission from any of them. The people in my life that have been very key to helping me. So I wanted to start off with some statistics because I think it's important for context. And these aren't numbers that I'm pulling out of my ass. I'm a historian by trade in terms of my college degree. All those lessons that I learned in college is that you go and research your shit. So I've been getting a lot of these numbers are just an average of things that I've seen from the National Institute of Health, the CDC, and well respected mental health organizations like Psychology Today, as well as the National Alliance on Mental Health, NAMI, which is a cause I donate to every year. So combination of different sources here. So you can go look up any of these if you want on your own. But again, these are kind of an average of the statistics that they've done on their own. So when we're talking about men's mental health, a lot of people like to tie it to things like the quote unquote male loneliness epidemic. And I think there's some connections there, but I don't think it tells the whole story. The one thing that I don't think people are talking enough about, and I'm going to take these off because reflection. Um, but the one thing I don't think people are talking about enough is that we still, roughly 4 to 5 years removed from when it started, we still don't fully understand the impacts that COVID had on our psychology and our psyches. Um, when the whole world was forced to go into isolation for weeks, months at a time, a lot of people that particularly lived alone at that point in time suffered in ways that I don't think we fully understand. And because isolating was seen as being for the greater good, it kind of twisted a lot of people in ways that we still don't fully understand, and we haven't done really enough to try and break the cycle for. So I want to start by that. Now, that's not anything that I can prove, it's just something that I feel. I want to make that clear. But here are some things that have been proven. And these are just most of the United States. I know I have some viewers that are overseas in Europe and stuff like that. So these obviously won't be accurate to your countries or your region. But for the US, almost 80% of suicides involve men. I've been recording for about 6 minutes. And in that time, dozens of men have died across the world and in the US in particular. Dozens. Think about that. It's 6 minutes. Untold amount of people have lost a brother, a father, a son, a friend. 500,000 men a year die from suicide. Die. This is not talking about attempts, because the attempt rate is actually closer to equal. But there are early theories out there that are being researched that men tend to choose the most violent methods of ending their lives, whereas women do not. And it's because women always think about what happens when who finds my body. Men don't care about that. They just give in to the voices in their head telling them that their life is over and it's not worth it anymore, and just do it. Now, it's a completely different subject for a completely different time, but I want to make that clear. I'm not talking about attempts. I'm talking about successful ending of life. Nearly 80% of that are men. Substance use and overdose deaths. Men are proportionally higher rates of those being cause of death than women. In the US, men constitute about 60 to 65% of the homeless population, depending on the sources that you look at. And there are roughly anywhere between 6 to 8 million men that are undiagnosed with a mental health illness of some kind. And that's not just anxiety and depression. Those are things like PTSD, bipolar, like things that multiple personality disorders. These are things that are truly there. Now, I've been diagnosed with anxiety and depression, but that took a while still. I had to go see 2 different psychiatrists to get that official diagnosis. And that took about a year to do. It kind of gives you an idea of just the obstacles that it takes to kind of diagnose these types of things. And then you think about things like panic disorders. You think about agoraphobias and other phobias that are just completely untreated, unknown, even to the men themselves. Like, they might know, like, I'm scared to go out in public, but they don't go out and get anything that says, why is that? I know that, like, I'm not agoraphobic. I'm not like going to completely like destroy myself going out into public, but there is an anxiety for me. I have social anxiety for reasons I've talked about before. So those are just some statistics. Like I said, they're an average of different statistics. Some of these numbers were higher, some were lower, depending on what sources that I looked at. But like, we lose a lot of men every single day to mental health, not including the amount of people that are lost to work-related things. And so it's something that a lot of people will say, but they don't actually do anything. And then there are sections of the internet that think this is all fake. And that's unfortunate. Because if the numbers were flipped and 80% of US suicides involved women, it would be considered a crisis in a lot of ways. And I would support that. I would support that it's a crisis. I also support the fact that nearly 80% of men in the US are killing themselves, in all suicides that are documented. That's a crisis. And we should treat it as such. And we don't. So why is that? Why don't we think about these things in the same ways? It's a very complex answer that has hundreds of potential reasons for it. And this has been the hardest part to try and figure out because I want to keep this short and simple without going into a 2 hour lecture on it. But one of the things that I think is like a big proponent and a big issue of this is generations of societal upbringing that told men you don't talk about these things. I remember, God, it was 10 to 12 years ago, I guess, at this point. Someone in my family said to my wife, my sons have never been depressed. And my wife, who knew what I was dealing with even at that time, was floored by the idea. But we got to talking about it. And now, luckily over time, that has changed in my specific situation. But I know that that's pretty common in the US and across the board, that many parents don't even think that there's something wrong with their sons and that they're doing it for attention or they're doing it to be rebellious, if they're like kids or teenagers. And, as a teen boy, yeah, sometimes you would use over emotion in what I would dub it as a way to draw attention to yourself. But there's reasons that kids do that. And it's because everyone wants to feel like the main character. Now, main character syndrome is a thing that's kind of become a coin term. I don't know if it's, an approved term in things like psychology or things like that. I'm not up to speed on that stuff. I would love to learn, but it just time. But, main character syndrome is real, where people want to make everything about them. That is kind of like a more narcissist behavior than it is a men's mental health issue or even a women's mental health issue. It's just a narcissist thing. But it's also a form of validation. And a lot of people seek validation. I've admitted many times that I do seek external validation. That's why I love when my videos get comments and likes and people tell me that they appreciate the time that I put into them here on my YouTube channel. Or, I get told at work, hey, you're doing a great job and you've really taken a load off my plate or whatever. Or even in my own social circles, like, thank you for listening. Like, I appreciate that you're always there for me and things like that. Like, everyone needs that sometimes. It's ridiculous to think that a human being who are social creatures by nature, despite varying levels of social interaction, but every single person in the world sometimes needs someone else to say, you're doing good, or I appreciate you, or I like that. But for some reason, and I don't know, tracing the roots of it back is probably going to have to go back hundreds of years. But there's this idea that probably goes as far back as the earliest kingdoms of man, that men always have to show strength. They cannot show weakness because the moment you show weakness, someone else takes your place or someone else eats you alive. Or in the case of like medieval war, you die. And we've never fully broken that cycle. And I think that's probably one of the biggest components of it. Another thing that is a more recent thing that is unfortunately gained a ton of popularity over the last 20 years, I would argue, ish, is what's dubbed the rise of the manosphere. Now, for those of you that are not aware, because you avoid such things, number one, congratulations. But basically, the manosphere is when you think of someone in your life that's like, oh, I'm an alpha male, like they have to announce the fact that they are that. It's those people that, and it intertwines a lot with, unfortunately, with misogyny, but it's people that feel like they have to act as if they're the top dog on the food chain. And that's the only way that you're going to become attractive to A, other men to be friends with, and B, women. And I've always thought that was bullshit personally. But you have figures in the world like Andrew Tate, who unfortunately has a big following and people that fully believe the bullshit that he spouts, despite the fact that he's actually not almost anything that he actually says that he is, if you really pay attention to it. But you have something like that, or what's dubbed the red pill. And this goes for both genders, but I'm specifically focusing on men here, where you get pulled into these ideas that seem strong, that seem powerful, but aren't in reality. Unfortunately, you see it in conservative politics in general. Looking at you, country that just committed terrorism on Iran. Anyways, um, so I think those are like some of the major causes. There are a lot of little things that you could also tie together. There's a lot of stuff that starts to get very into the weeds and starts to get into subject matter that I don't really fucking care to get into. A lot of people will talk about the gender war. I don't fucking care about the gender war. I think it's dumb. I think we should all just have more empathy for each other and stop trying to be, the old term, see who has the bigger cock. I don't care. I don't care if men are dominant. I don't care if women are dominant. I don't fucking care. I just want society to be moving forward. So I'm not going to get into that subject. But unfortunately, things like the manosphere, things like this, like multiple generations of societal upbringing that make it so that men can't feel like they can talk about it, I think are all some of the easiest and most common ways to talk about kind of the roots of why we get to these statistics that we get to. So, what are some things that we can do? It starts with everyone. Everyone. If you have a son, like I do, an amazing 8-year-old boy, raise them to help them understand that emotions are emotions. And it's okay to have all of them. If you're extremely happy, great. If you're feeling extremely confident, hell yes. If you're feeling empowered, great. But it's also okay to feel sad. It's also okay to feel, depressed. It's okay to feel like you're struggling with something and you don't know how to get past it. It's okay to cry. Teach your sons about these because the earlier that they learn that it is okay to feel these things, the more well rounded they're going to be psychologically, in my opinion. I talk to my youngin all the time about big emotions as we describe them because he's very young and he's autistic. We have to find ways that it connects with him. Do that with your sons. Do it with your daughters too, by the way. Teach them that it's okay to have all these things. The other thing that you have to teach them is that they need to be empathetic when someone close to them or someone that they know is having a bad day. You know, I know of stories that I've been told where a kid broke down and was bullied relentlessly for it. Don't teach your children that. Those stories might also relate to me. But I've had it in my own life. I've talked to people that had their kids deal with it, and they don't get any empathy from other kids, and it's because those other kids aren't taught that. So we just need to all collectively teach our children to be more empathetic. Now, over time, you have to refine the ideas, because again, there are going to be people that will have main character syndrome and try to make themselves out to always having a problem, or, to always being a victim. Again, pretty common traits that we're seeing in political realms right now. But I think that's the number one thing that needs to happen when it comes to children. And it's going to be work, and you're going to be constantly teaching them, and your own children are going to fuck it up. All right. You're going to get a call from someone that says, hey, this kid was crying on the thing, and your son bullied the mercilessly hell out of him, or your daughter did it. And you're going to have to teach your kid, and you're going to have to remind them. Now, that's not to say that they should be empaths and take on everyone else's emotions. Not every kid is capable of that. But they need to very least recognize basic humanity. And that is something that over the last, really going back 2008, 2009 is when it really started to happen. But definitely over the last decade, when hate has become a political tool and normalized to the point that it has infected society culturally, we need to break that. Now, what about older men, adults? Establish, if you have a circle of friends. I admittedly do not have a big real life social circle. I am making steps to fix that. I have always been better about being friends with women than with men. So I am not necessarily the best person to take advice from on this, but I think these are ideas to think about. One, if you've got a group of boys, whether you play games together, whether you hang out and shoot hoops or throw a football, cook or work on cars, or go to the bar, eat dinner, whatever it is, you and your group, play board games, whatever it is that you guys do, establish and create a culture that says, hey, buddy, it's okay to be, to have a rough day. There's unfortunately an internet meme where it's like, oh, when the guys get together, they talk about things like poop. Yes, that happens. I'm not going to lie. But believe it or not, a lot of men's circles, especially when there's no women around, will have very honest and real conversations with each other. And all sorts of reasons for that. I'm not going to get into it. But men, make your social circles safer places for your boys to open up, for your guys to open up, and be understanding. I'm not saying you have to fix the problem. In many cases, you may not be able to. But create the space that allows them to feel safe saying, I'm not okay. All right. Spouses, women that you have a lot of male friends. Two big things I would say to think about. Again, you decide whether or not you want to put these into action, but I would encourage you to think about this. If you've got a male friend or a spouse that comes to you and says, I'm not okay, listen to them and take it seriously. Because if they're coming to you, it means that they trust you. And obviously, as a spouse, as a partner, they really trust you. In the case of a relationship, don't use it against them. It's actually a huge, huge reason why men have said they are afraid to open up, is because they're afraid that it gets used against them later. And you hear all the stories, and I'm sure you've probably experienced that. I sure as hell have, where someone opens up to their partner and then they end up apologizing for opening up because they are the problem. Don't do that. Now, the reasons that they're opening up may, again, there may be ways for them to rethink those. And if you feel comfortable and if you've established enough of a safe connection to be able to do that, do that. Right? A lot of people think that, in a partnership, they have to take on all the emotional labor for each other. And I don't think that's the case. As someone that is single and is dating, I'm not trying to make my next partner, my next girlfriend, be my emotional support animal. I'll get a cat for that. Yes, I will open up to them and talk to them usually first about things, but sometimes I just want, and sometimes you just want them to listen and recognize it. Again, you don't have to do anything about it, or you do something small. Like, if your partner comes to you and says, "Hey, I've been really depressed or really down lately," that's not a slight against you. He's not saying that he's unhappy with you. The fact that he's saying it to you means that he's still probably very happy with you, but there are just other things that dominate the mind. You don't have to fix them unless he specifically says, "Do you have any ideas? What can I do about this?" Because a lot of times men will truly figure it out, or sometimes they are just so lost that they don't know where to start. Or sometimes they just need to say it because talking it out is how they work through it. I'm that way. I have friends all the time that are like, "I wish I could do more." And I'm like, I don't need you to do more. I just need you to listen, to the point that I tell them, I don't need you to answer me, but please just listen. And I do that in text. And I have unloaded on someone about some of the struggles that I've had. And she did exactly what I asked her to do. She didn't answer. Not with like, "I'm sorry, I can't do more." Like, those types of statements don't always help. She gave me a hug emoji to let me know that she read it. And then 2 hours later, we were talking about our kids. She did exactly what I needed her to do. And sometimes that's all your guys and your boys need, is just someone to listen and acknowledge that they listened or read it. We need to redefine masculinity in today's world. And a lot of people are trying. But it is going to take, unfortunately, I think it's going to take generations to truly undo the damage that the last 100 years has caused, probably going back further. And we truly don't understand exactly how much COVID really fucked with everyone. It really sucks to know that in the US, 500,000 men die a year by their own hands. It just sucks. But there are things that the men need to do for themselves, the circle of boys, the congregation of men, whatever you want to call it, need to do for each other. And women, you can't help too. Definitely encourage therapy. I've been in therapy on and off now for a while. I've been with my current therapist for 14 months now. I think it was April of last year that I started with her, and she's amazing. I've been very lucky that I found a therapist that matches my personality in the way that I and understands the way that I like to approach things and do things. And she's amazing. Even if problems don't fix themselves. And I do like, being single is a struggle for me. And I know that people are going to think, "Oh, he's complaining about the male loneliness epidemic." I'm not. Like, I'm not lonely. I've got a wonderful supportive family. I've got friends online that I would absolutely die for, that I would go commit crimes to protect. and are going to do the same. I'm going to be meeting one of them here in a couple of weeks for the first time. And I'm, in a lot of ways, it's one of the things that keeps me positive is being able to get to see someone that is my best friend and to meet her son, who I think of as my nephew. Like, that drives me in a lot of ways to push forward even on the darkest days on top of my son, you know, to continue to be there for him and to continue to help him become a better man than me, which I think every parent wants for their children. But at the same time, I struggle with being single. I was in a relationship of some kind for nearly 20 straight years, from the age of 15 to the age of 35. I don't know how to be single. I struggle with it. And because I am someone that admittedly does crave a lot of external validation, not having that relationship is something that weighs on me. But I'm not, so I'm romantically alone, but I'm not lonely. And I think people confuse the two. But again, that the loneliness epidemic is a touchy subject, and I don't want to get into it. But there are a lot of ways to mitigate the effects of those. I'm getting a cat specifically so that this apartment that you can't see because I'd rather have space in my background than my apartment is empty from the moment I leave it to the moment I return to it. And then even then, it's just me most days outside of when I have my son. So to have an animal there that hopefully loves me and adores me, and pets are very powerful. They can sense a lot of things. I have a friend, he's not even trained to do this, but he knows when his owner's blood pressure is really, really high. Again, never trained to do it, just knows and will be like, hey, something's up. And every time he's been right. So pets are wonderful, wonderful companions. If you're feeling alone, believe it or not, I think it's been even studied that petting a dog, petting a cat reduces your stress levels. And those animals will love you unconditionally. So if you don't have animals, try and get some. If you have animals, love them even more. You know, I mentioned wanting to kind of talk about people in my life that are have been so very key. I've mentioned a couple of them already, but obviously my family has been incredibly supportive. Um, my parents, I'm blessed that I have a good relationship with them. I know not everyone does. I've seen it, I've experienced it firsthand through people that I've been very close to in my life. But I have a good relationship with my parents. I live just a couple of miles down the road for them, which on weekends like this, where I'm recording this 2 days post vasectomy surgery, so probably why I'm a little off. I'm just in like a constant state of discomfort in the early couple of days. But anyways, they've been super supportive. Not just in making sure that like their grandkids are okay, but they've offered to help me pay for some bills when I got into a little bit of a struggle, even as I still somewhat struggle financially. They constantly check in. They have always struck the right balance between reaching out and saying, hey, and leaving me alone and letting me live life. I've seen parents that treat their children as if they are support animals. And I don't like that personally. But my parents, if I call, they pick up the phone, or if they don't answer right away, they call back. And it doesn't matter what time of day it is. And I'm blessed to have that. So, mom and dad, I love you. I do. My brothers, despite all the things that you do that annoy me, but we're brothers, they let me live with them for 18 months without paying a single cent. And even though they were probably pissed off that I wasn't doing a ton to support the household, you know, other than keeping my area somewhat clean and cleaning the bathroom that they let me take over as my own while I was there. They handle it. My older brother is always good for making me laugh. He is the class clown of the three of us. But I know too that, like, I said, bro, I'm not okay. He'll listen. And then he's probably going to make me laugh because that's just how he deals with things. My younger brother has become much more aware of me, I think. We've always had a fun relationship in that way. And his fiance, my future sister in law, is amazing. And she and I have connected a lot over the last couple of months. And sis, you said a lot of things that have been daggers to my heart in good and bad ways. So I love you for that. Thank you. I've developed a couple of really strong communities online with many people that I call friends, even if I've never seen their faces. Um, there's one community in particular that has become the safest space that I have, to where I can talk about things there that I don't even feel comfortable talking about with my family. Or sometimes I'll experiment with things like, hey, if I said this to my therapist, what do you think would happen? Um, but at the same time, we're always celebrating each other, we're always supporting each other. And for that community, and I think they probably know who they are if they're watching this, just know that I would burn the world to make sure that you're happy and safe and having a good life. Uh, some other communities that I'm in that are more video game based, that are WoW communities, but I've also met a lot of people there that have been tremendous people and have been very good to me. I actually worked an event for one of them yesterday. I was in this chair for 12-ish hours, making sure that the event ran smooth, and it never once felt like work because it was so fun. It was the first time I got to do it, and it was so fun. And everyone there that didn't know me immediately came in and treated me with respect. And that was amazing. And I got to meet a couple of new people that, maybe I can develop stronger connections with them down the line, which would be cool. I always like having more friends. Just a little bit of extrovert in me. And then my therapist, who I've mentioned a couple of times, is amazing. I cannot stress enough how finding the right therapist can do so much. Remember, therapists dedicate their lives, mental health professionals dedicate their lives to studying mental health and trying to help people through things. My therapist has done things to completely change my perspective in moments that I didn't think that I could have my perspective changed. She's gotten me to think about things in different ways. I confidently can say that I love who I am right now. I'm not perfect. Nobody is. I don't even think I'm conventionally attractive. I mean, look at me. I've debated creating a VTuber style model because I have a face not even for radio. I have a face for a book. One that is described as like the village wretch. But I would not be able to confidently say that I do love who I am without her help. And her and the communities that I'm in, they all bear me being sad about being single because it does weigh on me. It feels like an anchor some days. But I'm learning and I'm trying. So to my, I don't even know what to call them, support group, community around me, my friends and family, I love you all. And while I've never gotten as close as I did 3 years ago, I've had times where I've gotten into very dark places, and you have all always given me a reason to step away from those ledges. Whether it's reminding me about, you can't see it and I'm not going to show it, but just to the right of this monitor is a picture of the most important young man in my life. And next to him is the most important young woman of my life. Even though, our relationship is never going to be what it was 10 years ago, she's still so important to me. Stepdaughter. Even though I think she kind of hates when I call her that, but she is and always will be my child, even if I didn't help make her. I have my friends that, the opportunity to meet them is exciting, that I've never met online. I even had a really funny dream a while ago where somehow everyone in the one community that I'm in, even though we're spread across multiple continents, um, I dreamt that we all were meeting up for dinner, but because I've only seen the faces of like two or three of them, it was just like their Discord profiles, like floating in a chair, and it was hysterical to me. And I literally woke up smiling and then giggled about it. And then when I told them, they all thought it was fantastically hilarious. And it's moments like that where even though it was, if I really think about it, it's my brain's way of saying I want more. And in a lot of ways, I miss people that I've never even met. The fact that we all laughed about it and a lot of people thought it was wonderful in a dream world because, again, we live across multiple continents. Being able to do that would be amazing. And the fact that I was the one that kind of brought it up and everyone loved it. That's the type of external validation that I love. I didn't ask for anyone. Like everyone was just like, dude, that'd be so cool if we could all meet up. Yeah, it would be. So people think it might be strange, but even the regular commentators on things like my YouTube videos, to my reaction videos and stuff, which are the ones that drive the most comments. Not a lot of people talk on my WoW videos, which is fine. I don't care. I just want people to get the information on it. But the reaction videos kind of, by their nature, drive conversation, and the ones that have come back, and some of you have opened up to me about things going on in your life, and that has been really cool. Uh, Even things like that bring me joy and bring me happiness. So a small part of it for sure, because I don't post as often as I probably should. But those of you in the YouTube comments are also part of the reason that I ultimately feel optimism. If I'm being real with myself, I am optimistic about my future. Just right now, it doesn't always feel like it. So, enough about me. Men, go to your boys, tell them they can talk to you about anything. Again, you may not solve the issue, but be there for them. So, everyone needs a rock. Not everyone can be the rock all the time. Not Dwayne Johnson, just, the idea of the rock being that steady force. And I can't do it all the time. I've told people, I'm sorry, I cannot take this on today because I was struggling in myself. And that's okay. But men need to help men improve. Women can do a small part to help. The non-binaries can also do all the things that men and women can do. Don't want to leave you out, especially in Pride Month. Sorry. And we need to work on teaching our children how to redefine masculinity. And we need to redefine it. And we have to redefine it. Otherwise, things like the current gender war are going to last forever. And that's pointless. We should all be working together to create a better society. And whatever that society might look like to you, even if it's in your own home. I don't care if you are completely opposite of me. You're an ardent Christian that follows every word in the Bible. Great. If you find ways to help your children or your men in your circle be more open and find better spaces mentally, that way, fine. It's not going to work for me. I'm going to do it through other ways, through ways that I know have helped me, in ways that I feel comfortable in. I don't care. I want men to feel like being vulnerable, being, yeah, mainly vulnerable is not a weakness. Being vulnerable is a strength. Recognizing that you can't take everything on 24/7 is a strength. And we need to build support systems that allow men to feel safe in doing that so that we don't end up losing a number of men. I've recorded now for 46 minutes. I mean, the numbers vary, but every minute I've seen numbers as low as 5, as high as 100. So let's just take a median. Let's just say it's 50. Where's the calculator on my computer? I've recorded now for, let's just round it up to 50 because that's probably where we're getting. In the 50 minutes that I've recorded, 5,000 men have lost their lives. If we assume 50 men a minute take their life, we need to reverse that cycle. And we need to create healthy society. If you made it this far, thank you. Just know I love you. I appreciate you. And maybe one day we can realize that dream. So stay safe. Enjoy yourself. Love each other. I'll see you next time.